What's that?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us, those of you who are coming on now. We're going to have a large number of people who are joining us today. 60 to 80 folks are going to join. So there are a couple instructions that I wanted to give to you that help make it easier for you. First of all, if those of you who are now joining us can turn off your video, that'll maintain greater bandwidth for the panelists, and also mute your audio. If you go up to the right-hand corner, you'll see, if you take your pointer to the top of the page, you'll see speaker view. And if you want to have a larger view of the person who's currently speaking, that's one way to do it. Or you can keep it on gallery view to see all the panelists. The panelists will keep their videos open as the rest of us who are participants close our videos, turn our videos off. I was telling some folks earlier, and this is a learning that we're having, we're going to use a different technology the next time we come on. We learned about it this week, and so we're using Zoom meetings for this one, but we will use a webinar technology next time, and that will help us a little bit. Thank you for your patience as we learn, and that's really helpful to all of us, I think, to keep in our process of learning all the things that are available to us out there. Welcome to all of you who have just joined us. We have a lot of people coming on right now. We're at 50 folks, and we're expecting 60 to 70 folks to join us. So if you've just come on, if you wouldn't mind helping us out by turning off your video and turning off your audio so that the panelists can have greater bandwidth, that would help us since we had such a large turnout, which we're very excited about, very thankful for. Appreciate that, everyone. Thank you very much. We're going to give folks just 1 or 2 minutes more to get access to our forum here, and then we'll start our conversation together. Welcome, everyone who just have joined us. I see additional number of people who are just coming on right now. If you could help us out by turning off your video, that would really be helpful in terms of bandwidth. We have a very large turnout today. So if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see video, stop video on your left at the bottom. You may have to scroll down for it to pop up for you. And then the other thing is to go ahead and turn off your audio. If you would like to ask a question of the panelist, you would scroll down to the bottom and click on chat. And Kim Shockley, my partner in the office, will be gathering questions from the chat for the panelists. So anytime you have a question, please use the chat function. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see it. It's right in the middle of your screen at the bottom, if you scroll down. And that's the way that we'll field questions instead of opening our mics, because we have such a large number of people. I think opening mics is going to be challenging. So we'll use the chat. The other thing that I wanted to share with you as additional persons come on board is that we are going to record today's forum so that you can come back and look at it again, or you can invite your team members to look at it. We'll put it up on the website in the youth ministry area of the website so that you can find it there. And we'll also send you an email with a direct link to that as well. Well, we're currently up to 58 participants out of our 60 some, so I think we've done really, really well. Thanks, everybody. Let's begin with prayer. Join me in prayer, please. God, we have gathered as leaders of your communities across the conference to learn and to share best practices with one another as we try to bring folks together to grow closer to you, to deepen their commitment to becoming loving persons in the world, both youth, children, families. And we pray as leaders who lead these ministries that you would guide us with wisdom in how we do that we might do it safely, and that we might do it powerfully. And I thank you for all the panelists who are joining us today and their willingness to share their experiences, and for all of the background that they bring to this, and all their willingness to support their friends and colleagues across the conference who are in children and youth ministry. For all those things, we give thanks. We pray for your presence in our conversation. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, welcome everyone. What I'd like to do to start us out is to introduce you to those who are on the panel so that you can know them a little bit better. First of all, I'd like to introduce Melanie Feldner. Melanie is currently the Kids Ministry Director at Aldersgate United Methodist Church in Mechanicsburg. And she's been in this role for 30 years and has a tremendous amount of experience. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, everyone. I look forward to our time together and the opportunity to continue to connect beyond today.
Thanks. The second panelist is Christina McDermott. And Christina has a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and she also has a master's degree in classroom technology. She's currently serving as the Director of Youth Ministries and Programs at Christ United Methodist Church in Selinsgrove. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, I'm actually at Christ Community United
Christ
Methodist
Community,
Church.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Christ is a different church.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see or not see everybody.
Great, thank you very much, Christina, appreciate that. The next person is Stephen Haverstick. Stephen graduated from Messiah and has a degree in business administration and leadership and a minor in youth ministries. He's now serving as the Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries at First UMC in Hershey. So Stephen, welcome. Say hi to folks.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here and to learn alongside of these panelists. So looking forward to this.
Thank you. I'd like to next introduce Kelly Price, who is currently serving at
Calvary
United Methodist Church. Thank you very much. I've lost track of my reading there. Thank you. She's at Calvary, and she's responsible for curriculum and resources for children, youth, and adult Sunday school classes, Vacation Bible School, and the youth group. In addition to that, she's been serving for 26 years as a leader within Camp and Retreat Ministry. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'd like to also introduce Deb Port. She is one of the pastors at The Journey in Harrisburg. She leads the faith formation and growth and discipleship aspects of the congregation, along with a lot of other responsibilities she has there. She's also the mother of 4, so she understands what parents are going through in terms of faith formation at home. Deb, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with everyone, and I'm happy to be part of the conversation.
Thanks, Deb. And then our final panelist is Brittany Sky. Brittany, we're really glad to have you with us. She is a senior editor at Children's Resources at the United Methodist Publishing House. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be a part of this today.
Great. We have about an hour to answer questions that folks may have. And again, if you would like to submit a question, use the chat function, which is at the bottom. You may have to scroll down with your cursor to the bottom and you'll see it right in the middle. Just click on chat, and Kim Shockley will be gathering the questions from the chat at the bottom. So the first thing I would like to explore with those of you who are on the panelists is what motivates you, what inspires you in terms of being a leader of children and youth ministry right now? And so I open that up for conversation. What keeps you centered? What keeps you excited about children and youth ministry?
I can start. I think what this pandemic has shown us, not just for kids and youth, but for everyone, is that a time of disruption and disconnection has increased our longing for connection. And we know that's the need for kids and youth anyways, but that's been heightened in many ways. And so one of the things that's been unique about this time that's been exciting for me is without the bells and whistles of event planning that is a part of my job, events have been taken away essentially. I've been able to rededicate a lot of time to just individual connections with youth through texting, through FaceTime, through Zoom calls, or even home visits. I feel like I've done more home visits in backyards than ever before. So yeah, the individual connections and that need for connection has been motivating me during this time.
Thanks, Stephen.
And I would say for me, possibilities. It has just made almost anything new possible to try. Now you have to try it. To Stephen's point, it's not event driven, but to just open your eyes and see the possibilities instead of the limitations just excites and motivates me.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there others who'd like to respond to that? Christina.
I think what's motivating me right now is that I've been at my church for almost 15 years. And so the way I do youth ministry has to completely change now because as Stephen said, like, you don't have events, you can't really do what you've done before. So that's kind of really motivating me to think outside the box and say, okay, what can I do differently? How can I reach these kids? What can we do that's, kind of like what we did before, but different, in a way that's safe and healthy for them. So that's kind of motivating me to just kind of like, oh, this is new, this is exciting, they'll really like this. So kind of really think outside of the box that we've always had.
Yeah, I'd say I'm finding motivation with my own kids. Things like the older ones experiencing anxiety over, wearing a mask or going to school or whatever it is. And it's just now occurring to them. Like I heard them say things like, well, grown-ups don't have to deal with that. And I said, no, grown-ups deal with that. We just do it different. So I think a lot of doors are being opened to have conversations about things that matter with kids.
What excites me as I hear you talking is the way that you see this as an opportunity instead of just a problem that prevents you from doing something. You actually have taken a very different approach to it is what can I do that I've never done before that might move us forward in a situation that's something we've never had to deal with before. Brittany, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so one of the things that I do in my role is a lot of something called design thinking, which is empathetically listening deeply to ministry partners. And we've done a lot of research over the last several years. And one of the things that continued to come up, I'm sure no one is surprised, is centered around volunteer recruitment and management, having budgets to do the things that they want to do, and essentially just continue in the frame of ministry that we've had for a very, very long time. We have seen the strains of the lack of attendance in these old ways really putting a lot of pressure and frustration on all of those that I work with. And while that has been really uncomfortable, I think the pandemic and moving to a virtual space has actually given us the fuel to really move ahead of the continued deterioration of the old system and framework that we were given from decades ago. And so that's been really exciting to see. Even the way that we are creating resources at this particular moment in time is very different than even 6 months ago. So I think that's just really amazing to see the spirit moving in this new way and really getting us out ahead of, instead of 10 years behind everyone else.
Thank you, Brittany. I think we'll switch the topic now to a little different question that folks in the field across the conference have. And that is, you do have to do a lot more checking in with folks now because things are so different, to see how they're receiving it, to see how they're experiencing it, also to kind of get a feel for what is it that they need, they want, what are they willing to participate in, because you are trying new things. So the question I have for you to explore together is, what are you hearing from parents? What are you hearing from your participants about what they need, what they want, and what they're willing to participate in?
I think I'm going to start with a really simple answer to that. Ask. I've done a lot more asking and listening than ever before. Deb mentioned it in terms of the kids. If you just listen, there are so many opportunities out there. And there are a lot of different ways to ask, from one-on-one conversations to individual phone calls, but don't shy away from a survey. You know, SurveyMonkey has a free survey app that you can use, and ask families what they want, what they need, have individual conversations, probe into those relationships. And we tend to have made, to Brittany's point, assumptions about what people needed. And we were a bit, I'm going to use the word stuck, in an old infrastructure that we knew needed broken up and rethought and rebuilt. And to have parents help us with that rebuilding process is really exciting. So just ask in whatever way you're comfortable with.
Just to kind of sorry, go ahead, Deb.
I was just going to say, I'll add on to that, because in addition to asking, I think it's what we ask. So I know not just myself, although I'll admit it, you know, 4 kids, but other parents as well are just completely overwhelmed. Where if someone right now says, what do you need? It's like, I know I need something. I know I need support, but I have no idea what to say that looks like. So I like that Melanie talked about listening, but maybe it's questions about, what are you experiencing at home, and give them like a checkbox so that they can just click what they're experiencing. And I'll also add one thing we heard a lot of in our area in one of those surveys and just in conversations was the conflict between school schedules and parent work schedules. So one thing the Journey has been able to do is partner with a local representative to partner in the Community Classrooms Initiative, which is just opening up the church for space, for an alternate learning space for kids.
I was just going to add, when I was getting ready, we're getting ready to like open ministries up again. We're getting ready to meet as a youth group again. I did do a SurveyMonkey and sent out, you know, how comfortable are you? What are you comfortable with? Things like, are you comfortable with the kids sharing the same bag of potato chips? To, are you comfortable with them meeting in an inside room? I think just kind of gauging where every parent kind of stood on that, you know, scale of, are you comfortable with them putting their hands inside the same chip bag, or would you rather they don't? Are you comfortable with them sitting, you know, in the same space, or would you rather we be in a bigger space than our youth room? I want every family to feel comfortable bringing their kids to youth group. So I think kind of gauging where my parents were at. And as Melanie and Deb both said, you know, being very specific, you know, giving parents a wide range of options, you know, so it's not an either or, there's kind of an in between, and even saying, I don't know right now how I feel. And, you know, even if parents don't know how they feel about certain decisions, you know, that's important too, because, you know, maybe they hadn't thought about it yet. So just kind of weighing all of the options out there for them.
I think too, like Deb and Melanie said, when you're calling the parents and talking to them, seeing what you can do to also support the parents individually. It's a crazy time for them as well as their kids, and just seeing what their needs are, what you can do for them spiritually. Do they want a class? Do they want someone to check in on them regularly? Do they need to talk to the pastor? Just being open to feeling out kind of what they need, as well as the kids and the teens.
And one of the things that I've noticed in the circles that I've been in is that it's really important to take seriously those who have concerns around health and around some of those pieces. It's easier to, from my perspective, if you want full involvement, it's very important to understand what is being recommended and then follow the recommendations, because you'll have greater participation. If you do not do that, you will lessen your participation, because there are certain families that are not going to allow their children unless we're actually being careful in that regard. Melanie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Kevin, that's I think what I learned, one of the biggest learnings from talking to parents is that we are just a microcosm of what is happening in this entire world. And we have parents that we use the red, yellow, green because that's the easiest reference that everyone understands. And we have families that are red, we have families that are yellow, we have families that are green. So what talking to parents and listening to their needs what we're learning very quickly is we're going to have a lot of diversity in what we offer. And so what you're going to find is what we found is it's no longer a one size fits all. Stephen said it in the beginning, we used to have an event, everybody came, you did your thing. It's not that anymore. It's our red families are all Zoom programs, and our yellow are maybe a hybrid. It's very similar to what the public schools are doing. So there's such diversity in our families, and we want everyone to feel they have a place where they're safe and comfortable and find connection and joy. I mean, we want to have, families are desperate for something fun, for joy. So what we're learning is there's going to take a lot of diversity in what we offer to truly find a place for everyone to feel connected and plugged in.
Thanks, Melanie. That's a good transition, I think, to my next question is, what strategies are you going to use this fall? What kind of things are you going to create, and what kind of things are you going to do that you've done before? And what kind of hybrids are you going to use in order to meet the needs of folks? So I open up that question. What are some of your strategies for the fall?
Yeah, I can start with that one. We've, over the past like 3 to 4 years, centered our youth ministry culture on small groups, because we believe that getting a student connected to an adult who's connected to Jesus is one of, if not the most important factor in their spiritual growth, and also connected to each other. So that's something we've lost during this time, this sense of community. Now that, at least for our church, we're allowed to do outdoor gatherings in small groups with masks and distancing. And that's probably going to be more meaningful, feasible, and safe than youth group altogether outside. We're going to try that as well, but I'm wondering how that's going to go. So we're actually going to spend more of our youth groups on Sunday night just as small group gatherings in different places, and build into that small group culture again. The hybrid model for us, I'm going to try to do we're not rushing back Sunday school. We're not in our building yet for worship service. I'm going to figure out with the students, ask and listen, right? What is the best time for a Zoom gathering midweek for more of a Bible study format? I know Zoom fatigue is a thing and will continue to be a thing, but it's also opened up some discipleship opportunities, because it's easier for students to make time for an hour Zoom meeting than to coordinate with their parents of when they can get to the church or somewhere else for a discipleship gathering. So that's something what I'm thinking for a hybrid.
Great, thanks, Stephen. How about some others? What are some of your strategies coming up in the fall as you look at children and youth ministries?
So I'll start this by saying, I think like everyone on the call, I'm kind of like, someone help me. I don't have all the answers here, but I will tell you some things we're talking about. One thing is really considering on Sunday mornings, we're not ready to open our kids' rooms and our kids' programming, but what does it look like if a family wants to come to in-person worship and maintaining guidelines? And so one thing I'll just kind of throw out there is the idea of a family table that can be reserved. Or a family area designated off where a family can reserve a space, and then any activities for the kids would be already on the table, and everything is a one-time use item that they can use, take with them, leave there. Again, it's going to be up to families what they're comfortable with, but just providing different options.
Since we're talking about Sunday morning, we have been worshiping outside. We have the luxury of having an outdoor space, so we're worshiping outside. But what we have found over the summer is that families are not coming because, as parents know, it's more difficult to wrangle your kids outside than it is inside. And so we're starting Kids of Aldersgate on the Green. So what we're going to do is similar to what Deb said. We're going to have family squares, social distance squares, and they'll arrive as a family, go to that square. be there for the songs in the beginning, and then some volunteers and I are going to social distance walk the kids to another part of the green space, and just during the message do a Sunday school time for them. And then when the final song plays, we'll social distance walk them back, because what we've realized is we're not going to get families back until there's something for their kids, because it's just, they might as well watch online. It's easier. So we start that Sunday. I'm happy to, in future calls and future communications, share how that went. We have a plan. I'm going to be doing a lot of spray painting of squares and dots and 6 feet and all that. But I think to get families re-engaged for the fall, we need to offer, if possible and safely done, something like Deb said for families, so their kids have something to do so they can get their own spiritual feeding and relationships.
So we're going to be meeting outside, like so many of you. I'm so grateful that my church has this nice picnic pavilion that we can sit in. So we're going to try to be down there till, we change the clocks, or till the first snow falls, whichever comes first. And we're just going to utilize that outdoor space. We talked a lot about, if we have to go back to online, how do we make that transition easier? When it happened so quickly, back in March, I know I felt a little bit like I got my butt kicked. I feel like I have done youth ministry for so long, but then all of a sudden, overnight, it was like, okay, here, you're going to do it in a completely new format, in a completely different way. And I was scrambling for any sort of resource, online game, online lesson, online anything. So I know that was definitely something that kicked my behind. So we tried this time to find out, how we make that transition easier. So we sort of talked about doing prayer journals with our kids this year. Journaling is not really something we normally would do with our kids during youth group, but we were like, let's give them 15 minutes at the beginning of every youth group period, let them go off, by themselves in our grass or a picnic table, and let them do 15 minutes of journaling, whether it's a prompt or a scripture to reflect on, or just, some time of prayer between them and God, whether it's you go coloring or drawing or writing, whatever they want to do, because that's something, if we go back to Zoom, they can take that with them. We've also looked into doing something called the Bible study by Zach Wendell. The kids read the entire Bible in 90 days. That's also something they can then take with them, that we can then discuss with them. So we're kind of just looking for things that are very easily transitioned. So right now we can meet, but what if we can't? So we're kind of just looking for those things that we can just keep going back and forth with. As far as our children's ministry goes, I know they're looking at trying to meet. We have a tent we're going to pop in the yard for them, because there's, they're about 60 on a night. So we're trying to find space for them, maybe one group in our gym, one group outside under a tent, one group in the pavilion, and trying to keep those numbers down, but make sure there's different areas for them to meet. So just trying to figure that stuff out, just like all of you, we're just kind of scrambling to figure it all out.
Thanks, Christina. Are there other thoughts about how you're going to approach the fall?
In the spring, we always order Sunday school curriculum for our kids. So we had all these deep blue pamphlets that we didn't know what to do with. So we started snail mailing them to the families. And we did a survey to see if that's something they would like us to continue this fall. And the parents loved having that one-on-one time with their kids with the resource, so they could go over a Bible study lesson with them. So we're going to keep doing that this fall. We're still outside for worship with no Sunday school. And if we're able to come back in, then we already have the resources and we can just do that lesson inside as well.
That's great, Kelly. Thank you. That's really helpful to know that there's a resource out there that's easily adaptable. And Christina mentioned some that they're using as well. Brittany, could you fill us in a little bit, because you're from the publishing house, can you fill us in a little bit on what's available from you all that's adaptable like that can be used in various settings?
Sure. Yeah. So starting in September, we'll have a new curriculum line called Celebrate Wonder. And I would say that is very adaptable. And then we've had our one-room Sunday school option for the last 26 years. We're wrapping up our 26th year. I would say that is also a really adaptable resource. Both can be done in a hybrid situation. Both could be done in person, and both can be done at a distance. So there are a lot of options, and so I'm going to try to go through this in the brief overview as quickly and communicate as clearly as I can. We'll start with Celebrate Wonder. So Celebrate Wonder is our age level curriculum. We have 3 age levels, ages 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9+. It is centered around children's spirituality, imagination, and play, because that's how kids make meaning through wonder and exploration. And so we use wonder questions throughout the storytelling methodologies. The kids have opportunities to do things together and separately. And so that's just kind of the foundation. It uses spiritual practices to engage them in wonder. We have faith vocabulary that is being taught during Celebrate Wonder. So we know that literacy requires vocabulary acquisition. And so to be biblically literate, we also have to acquire a faith vocabulary. So every month is a new faith word. And all of that is incorporated in the in-person resources as well as our new digital resources. We've created we've had digital leader guides for a while, but we've got digital leader guides for each age level, digital activity sheets. So let's say you are meeting in person, but you want to email the activity sheets out to your family so they have them at home, or you're doing all virtual and you want them to have the activities to engage with you through like a Zoom call. The digital version of the activity sheets is priced based on the number of children who would be participating in them. This is also really cost effective, just FYI. And they can be used in person or online. We also have a new resource called the Family Activity Book. So inside this book, we sell them in packs of 5. You could get an actual tangible copy and mail them to people, hand them out to people, or buy the digital version and email them out. It has all 13 stories for the quarter, so we know that attendance is down, but we want to make sure that kids are hearing each story from the Sunday school lesson. So it has a Bible story retelling, a spiritual practice, and wonder questions for families to do together. So it's a very easy resource for families to use during the week. And it ensures that your kids are at least hearing the story once. We also have our videos. You can buy a DVD. You could subscribe to Amplify, our new video platform. You could subscribe to just the Celebrate Wonder video subscription, or you could pay for all of the video downloads. So you can use them in a variety of settings because of streaming capability. If you have a TV and a DVD player, or if you get the MP4 files from the download, you can even email those out to your families. There's music. Again, you can buy a CD or download it. And then the new thing that we added at the last minute is our digital class pack. And this resource has a ton of stuff in it. And it's only $19.99, but it has a simplified virtual lesson plan. So if you are going to do fully online Sunday school or small groups midweek, I would recommend buying this because it allows one person to lead a session for all of your kids virtually. It has your Bible background information and spiritual practice for your leader because it's important that we take care of ourselves. And then some sort of introductory activity, a spiritual practice, and then the Bible story retelling. There's a lot of wonder questions involved in it as well. So there's some engagement. I would recommend using it in like a Zoom, sort of like this, so that the kids can log on and talk with you as you're teaching. So it has all of those for the fall. A wonder wall poster. So the kids are being asked to go out and snap photos of things that make them feel inspired, have a connection with God, and put that together in something we're calling a wonder wall. Bible verse posters, word posters. letters to the parents, the Wonder Cube, which families could print out and then have on their tables and ask each other questions about Bible stories or just life. Like, what are you thinking about? Where do we see God right now? Social media posts, coloring pages, and Zoom backgrounds, as well as all of the art for the 13 stories that we will be covering in the fall. And it's also been put into a PowerPoint. So if you are doing a virtual Sunday school, you can click the share screen and share the images with your kids. So we've got a lot of adaptable things for Celebrate Wonder. I'm sure I've overwhelmed everyone. And if you have more questions about Celebrate Wonder specifically, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then One Room Sunday School has also has a print version, a print kit, and a digital kit. There are not videos with One Room Sunday School, but either one of those options allow for hybrid use or digital learning or in-person learning. So the digital kit has everything the print kit has, all the posters, the leader guide, the reproducible book. I actually adapted the Deep Blue One Room Sunday School for all of our spring and summer sessions that we moved online. So it is a really easy resource that can be used in a variety of ways. I've also used it as an intergenerational piece. So adult learners, youth learners, and kids can all learn from that same leader guide. So I would, if you are looking at intergenerational ministry as a way to engage your families, this is a really great resource for that because it has activities that span the age spectrum. Anyway, all of it is in there, and if you buy the digital kit, it makes it easy to then share your screen, teach online. Yeah, so I will take extra questions outside of the meeting if you all are interested in what Cokesbury Kids is doing right now. I'm really excited to hear about all the wonderfully creative ways that the folks who are also on this panel are engaging in children and family ministry and youth ministry right now.
Thanks, everybody. I just wanted to quickly let you know that in the chat, people are placing the links for the online information about all that Brittany just shared. And we will make sure that you get a copy of what's in the chat. Following, we'll send you an email with that information so that you have that. Thank you, Brittany, very much. The other thing is all the panelists have agreed to answer any questions from those who are attending. So we will send the panelists' name and their email address so that you can be in touch with them for follow-up. So that's one of the great advantages of joining today is you get direct access to people who are implementing some of these things. Melanie, I see that you're wanting to share some things that you're doing as well.
Well, I think that Brittany said something really important in the middle of that I had a very smart volunteer / parent say to me way back when this all started in March, when I was like the rest of you trying to figure it out. And so I had done a Sunday school and I sent a video and I said to the parent, well, what do you think? And she's like, it was fine. I said, tell me more. What do you mean it was fine? And now I'm going to take us to what Stephen said in the very beginning. It was fine, but it wasn't you and it wasn't relational. When Brittany said you can take their curriculum and present it, like video yourself presenting it as though you're in front of a group of children, whether that's you or a volunteer who loves the camera, whoever it is, the response that we've had to that, where they can see I have a partner, a wonderful partner, Heather, that we tag team it and do things. I worked with Deb in the journey, and what we learned was they want relationships. Stephen said it in the very first comment he made. It's about relationship. That's what they're missing. So even virtually, if we all end up back to nothing but Zoom again, take that great curriculum, but put your face, the face of your leaders, the face of your Sunday school teachers, and record it as though they're sitting there in the room with you. I can't recommend that enough. And I know, trust me, we have a 16-year-old intern that's helping me with that. So it can be done. You have an iPhone or a smartphone. It has opened up so many doors to take the great curriculum like Brittany talked about, but then put your face there so that they can still be in relationship, even if it's just virtual.
That is so helpful, Melanie. And I would just like to just kind of review the different ways that people can gather to be in relationship that I've heard so far, just to kind of wrap that together into a single piece. First of all, you can be in relationship online. And we've heard different ways that people can do that. You can do some things with small groups with your leaders where they get together, just the three of them, to chat, check in, see how they're doing. Part of the spiritual care can be done that way, and the relationship building can be done that way. It can be done through Zoom online. It can be done through taping videos of yourselves that might be the introduction to a lesson that might be delivered through the internet. So in other words, you may not do it on Zoom, but you could send them a little clip saying, hey, everybody, this is Kevin. We're going to be doing this week. It's so good to be with all of you. I just love you guys. I can't wait till we can be in person, but here I am saying hello to you. That kind of thing can be done in a 30-minute clip before they launch in, and parents could run that little video clip. So there are ways to be in relationship online, and I'm sure we're just starting to name a list that is much longer than what we've named right here. The second thing that you can do to keep people in relationship, because this is really strong that I've heard on here, is family. You can make their own family their community. So how do you support a family to do faith formation? And how do you keep connected to that family and keep your relationship connected to their relationship at home? Then I heard somebody talk about pods. I don't know whether it was Stephen, somebody had talked about the fact that we're going to bring people together in groups of 10. We have more youth than that, but we're going to bring them in groups of 10. When you do a pod, it gives people a chance to interact at a deeper level than if you try to bring 60 people together, which is probably not going to work very well on Zoom to try to have a conversation with 60. But how do you pod groups up so that they can be in relationship with one another? And in-person pods actually enable you to maybe do some indoor stuff, right? Because if you're in smaller groups, you probably have the square footage necessary to keep social distancing while you keep your masks on indoors. If you go outdoors in pods, the advantage to that is once you're social distance, you may be able to take your masks off outdoors. But the thing about pods, and when you're grouping people in smaller groups like that, is don't rotate leadership into different pods. Make sure the same leaders are with the same kids. Don't mix the kids up every time. And that way you can keep the spread of anything that might come to fore in terms of COVID to a smaller group and not to a larger group. So those are some ways. And then outdoors, indoors. And then I think one of the things that we don't think about, if you have a very small church where you can't do things outdoors in the middle of the winter, let's say, there might be a public space in your community where you could actually use it if you ask them. And if you cleaned it properly, you might be able to use a gymnasium that your church does not have. But somebody in the public might be willing to do that. So there are some creative ways for bringing people together. Let's jump to the next question for all of you is what steps are you taking to keep people healthy and safe? And what are your understandings of the advice of the medical folks that need to be in place in a youth ministry, children's ministry? So I open that up for what you all are learning and what you all are doing where you are.
I'll start. We're going to be meeting outside, like I said, for the fall because we felt like that was safer. Our kids need to wear masks when they're under our picnic pavilion. If they are playing games in the grass and they are far enough apart from each other, they don't have to have a mask on. The problem with anyone who has a teenager or works with teenagers, they tend to kind of go back together and huddle over like a phone or something like that. So I've notoriously all summer been yelling at them to give each other some space. We've also, when we have snacks, we've been individually wrapping like everything. So it's been individually wrapped potato chip bags or cookies or You know, soda cans have been, you know, cans instead of bottles, and everything's just been individually wrapped, lots of hand sanitizer, stuff like that. When we did pizza, adults were handing it out with gloves to the kids. So we've just kind of been doing that, just lots of space, make sure everyone has gloves if they're handing out food. And then if somebody uses like the bathroom or something, when we're done, my church has something called Virex. We have to go spray and then clean when they're all done. So we make sure those facilities have been disinfected properly. But yeah, that's kind of going to be the plan for the fall as well until we move inside. Once we're inside, we're going to be using our gym, and it'll kind of be the same thing, only they'll have to keep their masks on the whole time.
Great, thanks, Christina. What are others doing? What's your approach to making sure it's safe when you do your ministries?
I think maybe it's a little hard for me to answer that right now since we're not doing that. We do not have outdoor space. So we are working with just indoor space. But one thing, even just in when anyone's gathering, is constantly setting up a regular schedule for checking the guidelines since things change to make sure we're up to date, and also kind of controlling the flow of traffic, if that makes sense, making things one way. And I know even my kids going back to school, their hallways have become one-way hallways, and seating people and dismissing them.
Are any of you implementing a process where you're asking parents to monitor the health of the child? So if they have any symptoms, you ask them not to come, or how are you handling that part of it?
Well, we're not back inside yet, but what we've done is there are some places out there that have been open, like childcare centers have been open for several months now. So what we did was we reached out to some schools and childcare centers that already had a system in place. I'm not a big reinvent the wheel kind of person. If someone else has a great wheel, I'll just take that wheel and use it. So I would reach out to those places around you that already have great systems in place. And yes, they are all, many of them don't allow parents in the building. Temperature checks, we're doing temperature checks. Guidelines on if you have the following symptoms. So all of that, and that's kind of easy to find if you just go to somebody that's already offering childcare or day camps or something. They probably have that in place and would be happy to loan you their cleaning protocols, their wellness policies, their sick policies. There are great resources out there. And so we've tried to lean on that rather than start. If you try to start from scratch, it is absolutely overwhelming because to Deb's point, it's like changes all the time. So let's use our resources, let's use our community and get information from those people that are already doing this and doing it well.
So we actually have a preschool at our church, and I actually spent all summer writing preschool policies because we are getting ready to open in about 2 weeks. So as you were saying, we actually aren't letting parents in the building. They have to pull up. We will do a temperature check. We ask them 3 or 4 questions, one of them being, have you come into contact with anyone who's tested positive since your last time at school? Does your child, exude any of the following symptoms? And then we list several COVID symptoms. Is your child on fever reducing medicine? How much are they taking and what for? Those questions like that. And I got those actually off of like a CDC website. What are the symptoms? What kind of questions should you ask? And then we're going to walk the children in the building. When they're dismissed, we're going to walk them out. Our preschool policies will actually be on my church's website if you are interested in them. Under the preschool tab, it is ccumchurch.org. If you have a strong desire to look at our preschool policies, they're there. But yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking trying to make sure everybody's safe, but we cut our preschool size in half. We went from 20 kids to 10. So we have 2 small classes just so we can have lots of space for those kids to be, at the tables where they're at the toys, and we're going to swap out toys for each class so we can disinfect things. It's a lot to think about. So for those of you who have children's programs, I do not envy you at all that you have to think about this stuff as well.
Thanks, Christina. That's very similar to what I'm hearing from Camp Retreat Ministries. About 80% did not have summer camp, but there were about 20% that went ahead with summer camp. Some of them had a very difficult situation. They had a lot of spread of COVID. Others were able to do it without having a case. And I would say the highlight that I learned from the surveys of those Camp Retreat Ministries is you really do need to either quarantine kids for a couple of weeks before they enter your program, or at least the parents monitoring that they haven't had any of the symptoms for the 14 days prior to participation if you're going to come in together. So that's something to think about. That helps. That's not enough, however, because there was a camp that did those pre-checks and then thought, oh, we're all fine. We didn't have any symptoms during the 14 days. Well, they had about 300 campers and about 200 of them came down with COVID. So all I'm saying is you have to use the combination of practices that Christina was talking about. You still have to sanitize things. When you're indoors, it's smart to have people wear masks. Even if you can be separated from one another, they're finding that COVID can circulate in small spaces. So even if you're 6 feet apart, it can still travel in the room. If you're in a larger space, less of a problem. But all of those things are important as well. And Deb, you had mentioned earlier that you really try to keep the traffic down. So it is smart, as Christina was saying, to not allow a bunch of other people walking through the spaces that you're going to be using with your children. So parents coming to inside the room, probably not a good idea. They probably need to pick up their children outside of rooms. If you're going to do things indoors, those kind of spaces. That's very, very important. Not rotating leaders among different groups, because that's what happened at one of the camps. They had, I don't know whether it was a music person or somebody was traveling from group to group. And that's the person who exposed multiple groups, where if they hadn't done that, they would have only had a small number of people. So there are things that you can do. And again, the Center for Disease Control website, as Christina indicated, provides a lot of information. You also receive it from the state. My recommendation is that you follow the recommendations of the health professionals. That's probably the best way to go. We find those who don't. Not all of them have problems, but a significant number among them have had problems that I wouldn't, if it was me personal, I wouldn't risk that at all. There's no need to. Just follow the guidelines. Let's switch in our final minutes here to a different topic. What's been most challenging for you as a leader during this period of time? What are some of the things that have challenged you, made you grow, been difficult during this period of time?
So I think I've noticed just for myself, I'll say when I worked with Melanie and we were doing a VBS curriculum that was at home, one thing we had to keep looking at was, are we asking parents to do things they can't do right now, just because they're overwhelmed? And so we had to look at, it was a challenge in kind of coming up with the balance. How do we provide materials, but not make it all dependent on the parents to do?
And Deb, can you talk a little bit more about what you did to help the parents? What were some of the specifics that you did?
Yeah, so, and Melanie, jump in please anytime, because you worked on this as well. But some of the activities, so we did some activities that were like family questions, where parents would be engaging in that, and activities, but then we said independent child activities, where it was, you could give your child this and they can go do it, and you don't have to be there over top of them the whole time. Something that I added on afterwards, Melanie, because we ran ours later, and I was thinking about, I thought, well, we had some adults who wanted to engage in the VBS materials who maybe didn't have kids. So I did a parent devotion. So I think it was just also making sure, how are we checking in with parents as well as kids? And again, just kind of looking at that family unit.
And to tag on to what Deb said, the challenges that, in terms of challenges, it's the feeling of, I'll use the word isolation, because our ministries are so connectional. I mean, you put people in front of me and I know what to do, but it's so hard when we were distanced and we didn't know. So I think it's important that all of us are connected. VBS, we were able to do VBS at home because we partnered with The Journey and Deb and that team. So we've got to work together. You know, if you heard something on this call and you said, there's no way I can do that, then reach out to the person who said they're doing it and let's do it together. Let's, you know, we couldn't have pulled VBS off without Deb and her team. So we've got to work together in ways that we maybe we tend to be, you know, Brittany referenced it, that infrastructure that we built that we were kind of stuck in. We like our silos sometimes, and we get in our silos and we stay there. Don't stay there. Reach out to whoever, you know, whatever you heard today that you said, oh, I'd like to try that, but reach out to somebody that can help you with the but, like help you get past beyond the I would if or I would but. I think that is so important that we are all in this together. Or I don't know about all of you, my office is on the second floor and I'm the only one up here and I've been alone for 5 months. It's getting ugly up here. So whatever you need to do to feel connected, I think that helps with also taking care of you, because that's important.
And I just have to, Melanie, as you were talking about, I have to add one more thing. I think there's a resource that we don't acknowledge, and that's our older folks in church. And how can we even, something we're kind of toying with is, do we do like an adopt a family where someone without kids is just taking on a family and sending them cards in the mail or phone calls to help build that connection? And if you have a church that you say, well, we don't have any kids, well, okay, sponsor another church that has too many kids to handle, and you know that you can build connections. It doesn't have to be siloed in different churches.
That's a really good thought, because not only can we support each other as United Methodist churches, but if you're in a location that doesn't have another United Methodist church nearby, there are other congregations in that community that you probably have an affinity with that might be able to help you. So I think that's really helpful, just to kind of expand our options a little bit by collaboration and partnering with people. Let's field a couple questions. Kim, I invite you to come on and present any questions that might have come in on the chat.
Sure. The one that really seems people have some interest in is whether youth leaders or pastors or even children's workers are asking parents to sign a waiver in order for their children to participate.
So I'm not personally asking my parents to sign a waiver to come to youth group. Anything beyond our normal like permission slip that they sign for all year. In our preschool, they have to sign a paper that basically just says they've read our policies, they understand them, and they agree to follow them. Our church also has COVID policies. So like the youth group, you know, we say that we're following the church's COVID policies. So we haven't asked anyone to sign a waiver, like as far as youth group kids go. And I don't think when our children's ministry starts up again, I don't think that they will either, outside of their typical permission form.
The other question that someone asked was specifically to Melanie for her kids on the green. How many different age groups are you planning for? And can you say more about that?
Sure. That program is we're not offering it for preschool. It's just not appropriate for us to try to manage that in an outdoor setting. It's kindergarten through 5th grade, and we will walk them as one group, and then we will split them into pods of 10. The beauty of it is we can still follow Safe Sanctuary. I don't need 2 people for every pod, as long as the pods are visible to the others. So really, one person could have 10 kids as long as they're visible to another pod. So it is kindergarten through 5th grade. And honestly, each Sunday, we'll probably do our split depending upon how many we have. And we tend to keep kindergarten through third grade together. And then our fourth and fifth graders don't think that's so cool. So we tend to split them off. But it's whatever, you're just going to have to read that in the moment almost, because we're not going to have people sign up. We're not going to have them sign up for that. Once we come indoors, everything will require a sign up. But for that, we're going to do pods or groups of 10, and it's kindergarten through fifth grade.
That's great. Are any of you using the waiver forms, sort of going back to that question a little bit, just to see if there might be a variety of the way that people are approaching that? I know we will be using a waiver once we come inside. We're not using a waiver for outside activities. Okay. What I will commit to is to gather samples of waivers for those of you who may want to see some samples, with the caveat that I am not a legal expert. None of us on here are a legal expert. So if you want to get somebody who really knows what they're doing, you're going to have to hire an attorney or somebody to look over your waiver form if you want to go that far to make sure that it's properly set up. But we certainly can gather some samples for you. And Kim, if you can write a note for us to do that kind of follow-up, I'll gather 2 or 3 samples for you. Great. Are there any other questions that people have? We have just a minute or two. I want to make sure that we answer the questions that folks might have.
There's nothing else coming in right now.
Well, can I just say thanks to all of you who participated. We really appreciate your leadership. We appreciate you taking the time to learn and to grow and to be among your colleagues. We will send you some of the information that we had talked about and also the contact information for the panelists. Let's close in prayer together as a community. God, we thank you for this opportunity to be together in dialogue around something that's really important. How do we bring people in relationship with one another, since really discipleship is about relationship? As Jesus said, the most important thing is to love God, to love others, and to love yourself, and all of those are relational. We pray that during this time of COVID, you would inspire us to creativity about how we continue to deepen people's faith, and not only that, but their practice of love among each other and in the world. We pray, all of us who are leaders, that you'll continue to shape us. You'll continue to help us grow, that we might be the embodiment of Christ's love in the world. And for all these panelists, we're deeply grateful for their willingness to share what they're learning and what they've gained over time as leaders with their colleagues. Thank you so much for this day, its beauty, and its meaning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thanks everybody for being with us. Thanks all the panelists as well. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week and look forward to connecting with you in other avenues. Take care. Bye-bye.